Yeah, one minute. Okay. Go.
Go. Okay. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 11th webinar for the Cyberwatching project. Today's webinar is organized together with the SME-SEC project, the GHOST project, the Protective project, and the Spanish Center for the Development of Industrial Technology. Today's topic is how to improve the marketing capabilities of a project under the title, From Research to Market, Promising Outputs Are Not Enough. And to illustrate this and answer to the question you may have, we are pleased to present 4 speakers today. 3 of them are representing projects that are pretty advanced in market readiness. And the 4th one is a representative from the EIC Accelerator pilot. So we have Marcin Cibicewski from ET, and responsible for the exploitation and dissemination of the Protective project. We have Javier Augusto González from Televes presenting the GHOST project. Then we have a 5-minute slot to answer your questions. So if you have any question for Marcin or Javier, you can put your question in the chat box. We also have Alberto Miranda Garcia from Atos presenting some tips from SME-SEC project. And then we have Esther Casado, Spanish national contact point for the EIC Accelerator, who will be giving some advices from her knowledge of this funding instrument. The EIC Accelerator that, as you may know, supports close-to-market activities. And finally, we have an additional slot of 5 minutes for questions for Alberto and Esther. And again, you can make use of the chat box. But before starting with the presentation, I would like to give a quick overview of our project and the activities we are carrying out. Cyberwatching aims at bringing together the different stakeholders from cybersecurity and privacy to collaborate. So you can register at Cyberwatching as a researcher, as a company, or even as a user. We have launched the GDPR temperature tool that is a self-assessment tool for companies to evaluate the risk of being sanctioned due to the GDPR violations. So please give it a try and tell us what do you think of it so we can improve it. Another point that I would like to highlight is that we are going to hold our 12th webinar next 2nd of April at 11 a.m. with one of our partners, the University of Oxford, that will be presenting the Project Radar. That is a very, very useful tool for companies, researchers, and policymakers. The spring 2020 version of this tool, the Project Radar, will be published very soon, and we are now collecting some needed inputs from projects to create this radar. And those inputs are related to the topic of this webinar, since the market readiness is taken into account in the project status in the radar. And I would like also to invite you to attend to the 22X event in Hanover that was scheduled for March, but lucky of you, it has been postponed for the next 23 to 25 of June. This event is a B2B event where topics and services for SMEs are presented and discussed. So you will find exhibitors, but also conferences, deep dive workshops, and networking areas, all around SMEs of the ICT sector. And our project Cyberwatching will be hosting an information stand titled EU Innovation in Cybersecurity, focusing on EU projects and specifically what they can offer to SMEs seeking to internationalize their business. We will be sharing this stand with 4 H2020 projects related to cybersecurity and privacy, and also one SME. This webinar is part of the MRL, Marketing Readiness Level activities that we are carrying out in the Cyberwatching. But first, let me clarify what is Marketing Readiness Level and why it's important in the context of our Cyberwatching project. As you can see, those are the main macro activities of our project: clustering and synergizing, EU-funded projects in cybersecurity and privacy, engaging them and also all the relevant stakeholders, and finally, supporting this collaboration framework. In the first macro activity, we have a workflow starting by mapping and clustering projects, creating the project radar, assess the project readiness, and when they are ready, offer support for commercialization through our marketplace. And within the readiness analysis, we found the marketing readiness level as a complementary methodology to the well-known technology readiness levels to assess how close to the market the project outcomes are. And how are we assessing the market readiness of the projects? Well, with an automatic tool, the MTRL questionnaire. It has 9 simple questions, and it is sent to the projects in the project hub of Cyberwatching each 6 months. With this questionnaire, projects get a MTRL score with a pair of technology readiness level value and marketing readiness level value. With the project clustering and classification together with the MTRL assessment, we are creating working groups of projects with the aim of finding synergies and carrying out joint initiatives. As next steps, we are preparing 2 conference calls with 2 groups of projects grouped by their MTRL score to work on these joint activities. The MTRL score also improves the accuracy of the project radar, but if you want to know more about how the project radar works, please visit our webinar page in the coming days, where you will find the information to register in the Project Radar webinar. Sorry, this one. Okay, so you can see that today we have 44 registrants from 15 different countries, and 27 out of them are representing an H2020 project. I'm sure you will enjoy learning the key factors for market-oriented exploitation and the role of IPR, and finding out what profiles are needed in your team, and hopefully becoming part of our cyberwatching community as a project or as an SME. And now, I hand over to our first speaker. Remember that you can use the chat box for your questions. So Marcin, please go ahead with your protective project.
Welcome everybody. Today I'm gonna be showing some good practices that we've learned during Protective Project. So since we've got some very fine speakers today, also I will be giving some broad guidelines rather than some very specific and also I will be concentrating on some of the project phases because what I see is that sometimes, for example, pre-project phase doesn't get enough attention, in my opinion, when considering exploitation. Okay, so maybe let's start with some very general information on the Protective Project. So Protective Project is an was a H2020 project, innovation action project, which is now finished actually. but the goal of that project was to develop tools for cybersecurity, and more specifically for CSIRTs, and even more specifically tools for organizations called NRENs. So these are actually providers of internet networks for universities. And as such, the project concentrated on delivering open source tools and delivering also an exploitation model that could sustain those tools after the project ends. The project had 3 academic partners, 4 industry partners, and 3 NRENs, which were both the project partners as well as the end user of the final solutions. And as I said before, the project is now finished, and I'm happy to report, so to speak, that the tools are still being used by those NRENs, and with new NRENs starting to pick up some of the tools developed within the project. So that's about the project. Maybe now let's go to the presentation itself. So why exploitation as a function of time? Why I say that? It's because one of the lessons that I've learned from Protective, as well as some of the my previous project where I was also responsible for the project exploitation, is that too often I feel that in research projects people concentrate on the current necessary actions without having a proper plan from the beginning. And by the beginning, I do not mean the kickoff meeting, I mean actually pre-project phase. So in my opinion, the number of the choices that you can take, the decisions that you can make in order to make sure you finish with something that is actually exploitable at the end of the project, decreases with time. And this means that even in the pre-project phase, there are some crucial decisions that you can and should take in order to assure that during the project, you can actually fulfill your promises as to regards to the project exploitation, and then possibly hitting the market with your solutions. Maybe one disclaimer also here, please remember that I'm talking from perspective of the innovation action projects, H20 projects, which by itself assumes a higher technology readiness level, TRL, but as we'll also probably discuss today, technology readiness level is not the same as market readiness level. So, but this is something also worth remembering. Since I only have 6 more minutes, I'm gonna be, as I said, talking very broadly. So if you see something interesting that I haven't had time to discuss today, please just ask a question. Maybe we'll have some more time later on in the questions part. Okay, so pre-project phase. I think we'll concentrate on this phase during today's presentation. So I would say that when you're starting, the usual way for H2020 is to write proposal. And what I would say that it would be a very good practice would be for you to, if you're coordinating this action, or if you're responsible for the exploitation part of the proposal, is to create a draft canvas at the proposal stage. So this would be your best view of what you want to achieve exploitation-wise with the project, and also it will let you structure your exploitation plan accordingly. You would have to, even by choosing the proper canvas, because there are different types of canvas, this will already make you think whether you want to evolve or to disrupt, or probably it would be best if you did both, obviously. But what I mean by that, I will go into some very broad details later on also. Generally, evolve, I mean to extend in existing market. By disrupting, I mean usually that you have something so unique that you would probably maybe even need to create a new market for your solution. But this is very important to consider from the beginning. Another very crucial thing is that once you start joining your partners in the pre-project phase, you need to assure the licensing, the proper licensing is there established already at the proposal phase, because you may end up during the project having some elements crucial to your platform, to your solution, that are owned by, that are covered by licenses from partners, from your consortium partners, and those licenses may be incompatible with what you want to deliver as a project. So even though there are many project participants in this kind of projects, you need to make sure that, let's say, the crucial elements of your solution, the ones that you see crucial, you need to make sure with the partners already at the proposal writing stage that you secure licensing of those solutions. So even if something is purely commercial and you want to, let's say, have a free version of your platform for some kind of users, because that's what you want to deliver with the project, you need to make sure that there will be another version of that tool or special license for the use of your project after the project ends also. So that's, in my opinion, very crucial point, because later on it will be very hard to fix. Another thing is that it is my opinion that it's hard to make a new market. So I would suggest extending existing solutions. And as such, I also suggest to also join partners that have large user base with existing solutions, and then to try to extend those solutions within the project. That would be my very good, so I would say things that would be worth considering in the pre-project phase. The first, since we got 3 more minutes, very shortly, once you got the kickoff, and after the kickoff, what you should concentrate is to first define the market readiness level that you aim at with your project. And here you've got this great tool that was already described, which is the NTRL and MRL questionnaire. I think it's very good for you to fill that out at the beginning of the project, so you know where you want to end at the end of the project. Because please remember that TRL is not the same as NTRL. I know there will be some presentation discussing this further, so I won't go into more details. Also, again, you've already should have a first version from the pre-project phase of your canvas. Do it again with the partners, and then concentrate on refining the value for the end users, engage the end users, and take their feedback into consideration. Next, please remember that your project is not in a vacuum. Even if your solution was revolutionary at the moment of writing the proposal of or the kickoff meeting, there may be some new entrants. So please treat the market monitoring not as something you need to do for the, let's say, one of the deliverables or for some kind of report, but rather treat it as something that you need to do at least continually, not continuously, but continually, so every some time. So this is something that you need to take into account. You need to have specific project roles for this kind of updates. For example, in project, I was the innovation manager, and this was my responsibility. This is very crucial also. Choose proven technologies, because remember, in those kind of projects, you don't usually have a large marketing budget, which means that you cannot create your own market, so to speak, because this usually suggests that you need a really large marketing budget for creating, so to speak, a new user, right? So you use proven technologies, use technologies that are already used by other partners, extend existing solutions. Okay, I've got 10 seconds. So last thing to consider by you is please ask yourself if you're actually doing pilots or you're doing demonstrations, do the pilots. So if you can, not demonstrations. And consider also if there are any differences between global markets and local markets, because it may be apparent that in some of markets you will not be able to exploit your solutions, or you will need a local presence in those markets. Okay, I think this summarizes my presentation, since I've already passed the 10-minute mark. So thank you all. Should you have any questions, please ask them in the chat window.
Thank you very much, Marcin. It was very interesting, and it shows the importance of working in exploitation from the very early stage of the project, or even in the proposal, as you said, and also keep working during all its life. And it also shows that you have to answer a lot of questions when planning the exploitation of your project, if it's an innovation action or a research and innovation action. Which is your market? Is this a global market or a local market? So as you said, it's a long game. And now we move on to our next presentation with Javier Augusto González and the GHOST project. So Javier, I hand over to you, please.
Okay, hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this webinar. First of all, I would like to say thank you to the Cyberwatching project. It is a pleasure to be here and to have the opportunity to present a little more about the GHOST project. And also, I would like to say that Marcin has spoiled some parts of my presentation, because, as you will see, we agree on many things. I have only 10 minutes, so I would like to be fast with that. I will tell a little about the Televes and GHOST project. It's really fast, and I would like to give you a little of context about the reasoning behind the project. And also we will talk about the concept that that is related with the things that Marcin has commented, exploitability by design, that we follow in the projects, and also the tools that we have used, and present our future plans maybe. First of all, I am part of the Televes team. Televes is a manufacturing of electronics. It's quite important to understand that, because we are a company that wants to bring technology to the homes of the users for different markets. And also, it's important to say that we are global, so it's quite straightforward for us to think in this kind of markets. Regarding the GHOST project, and the reason because we are here is the GHOST project is related with creating a gateway or a suite of software for a gateway that is inside the home to secure the IoT installations that you can have at your home by inspecting, analyzing, and profiling the behavior of the different devices and the different people that are at home, to create some mechanisms to automatically assess the risk of the installation, making the most of the blockchain for different features, and also to create this software tool with a focus on usability by the end user. We are trying to open the black box that is cybersecurity today for the final user, to the end user, for people that are not experts in technology. Given that, for that we have created this consortium some time ago, 3 years ago. We are in the last stage of our project. We have 2 more months to finalize everything. But the important thing here is that we have, let's say, created a consortium with representation of the industry, and also from the academic point of view, trying to bring exploitation and excellence in the same page. And that was the introduction in order to understand this question. That was already replied by Marcin. When do we start the exploitation? And it is during the proposal definition. It's quite important during the proposal definition to create the models that Marcin has commented, to be sure that you are creating the right environment during the project in order to create something that is exploitable. For an innovation action, I think that is critical, this stage in which you have to, and it is the thing that we have tried to do in the GHOST project. If you take a look to our consortium, you can see that we have bring to the floor the whole value chain, because we have people that are more focused in the development of the software. Also, we are manufacturers, and this is the reason because I introduced Televes. Also, we have service providers in our consortium. the end user, let's say, and through these service providers, we have the access to the end users. Another thing that is really important also for during the proposal stage is to create the needed experiments in order to reach this end user and to test the solution that you are doing. So we have created a mechanism and some iterations during the project to pilot the solution in real homes, just to check if the system that we are doing is usable at all or not. To check if the solution is in a way that will be adopted by the end user. That is the main, and if he is covering the needs of this end user. Which are these tools that I am referring to? Mainly, as I have commented, we have these real-life trials, the last point, in which we have tested different things during the day-to-day use of the system. And also we have seen that during installation is critical for our solution. So we are improving that. And this, the feedback that we have received from the end users has been incorporated in the development path for the solutions. But this is not the only tool that we have used in our, let's say, user-driven methodology. We have also used online questionnaires, and this has helped us to understand that one of the main problems that we will face during the exploitation of this solution is the lack of awareness of the society in terms of cybersecurity. So this is something that we have to address, and we have created some material in order to try to increase this awareness level. And also we have used targeted focus group. We are not doing focus group for the only thing of doing them. We are trying to make the most of them. So in this focus group, we have put together many experts mainly in home IoT-based services. And for example, one thing that we have get from this focus group is that the model can change in terms of the role of the service provider in the cybersecurity management model. At the beginning, we thought that the end user should have the capability and the responsibility of controlling everything, but the end user is not comfortable with that. So we shift to include the service provider in this model of taking care of the cybersecurity. This is not the only tools that we have used, but one thing that we think that also is critical is the identification of the IPR that has been created during the project and the relation of this IPR of the different partners with the products that we have delivered during the project. So first of all, we identify the products that we have. Mainly, probably you at the beginning of the project, you will have in mind one specific product, but as you are assessing the market and the solution is evolving and you are seeing the inputs that you have from the methodology that you have, you can find new lines that are useful and can, for example, a light version of your system could be an option for someone. So we identify these products, and after that we identify the relevance of these products in each one of each one of the models that we have in our solution, for each one of the products that we have selected. And with that, and also with these end user journeys that we have, that has helped us to understand the potential thoughts and actions and the contact with the solution, the frustration of the end users, of the different end users that we have defined. You can create this first version of the business plan. That will be the last point that we will touch. To summarize, the workflow that we are following is, first of all, we have the proposal. Once that is found, we are working on the project and we create the first version of the minimum viable product of the ghost solution. With the methodology that we have continuously improved this with the pilots, with the focus group, with the questions and so on. We are in the moment that we are creating the final version of the ghost solution, and nowadays we are doing this flotation assessment by creating this business plan. After some discussion with the partners, the main idea that we had is to create a shared legal entity for exploitation. We know that it's challenging in terms of the definition of the shareholder, but this is the moment in which we are using this IPR, product IPR identification table that we created to analyze which is the relevance of the modules that each one of the modules has, or each one of the partners has developed during the project, in order to create a shareholder distribution that is appropriate to this relevance of each one of the modules. In this identification of IPR, also we have included also the relevance for the market and the possibility of analyzing how the replaceability of each one of the modules. Without going into the details, we are analyzing all these points that you can see here. We are trying to go into the details because the main scope of this business plan that we are creating is to evaluate if we can pitch this business plan in two different sides. First, internally, it's something that we are analyzing this or seeing this cost project and the result of the cost project like the starting point of a possible startup. So we need to pitch this against or in front of our investors, internal investors, like are the different partners that we are in the project, and also with external potential investors like the European Commission with the programs that they have, private funding, and so on. And that's all from my side. Thank you all for your time, and I will be really happy of answering the questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Javier. That was very interesting from you. And you also highlighted the importance of the exploitation plan even before the project starts during the proposal, and also trying to involve the whole value chain. And I think that the attendants will much appreciate the presentation of the tools that you have used in your end user oriented methodology for your project, and even the continuous improving workflow. So now we have a question from one of our participants, Jax Magin, or Magin, I don't know, sorry. It was from Jax to Marcin, but I think that it can also be to Javier. And the question is that if the presentation from your project, it's not necessarily limited to the security and privacy market, but could also be used in other domains as well. And if you agree to this or not.
Thank you for this question. So if we mean the things shown in the presentation, so those guidelines that I've shown, or some key points I discussed, I would say that yes, these are applicable to a broad spectrum of projects. I try to keep it quite general, actually. So I would say that definitely that's very wise to notice. Although I would also say, I didn't have time to talk about it, I would say there are some specific elements to security that you need to consider in a security project. And I would say these are probably mostly related, at least in my opinion, to the project risks, because in a security project, in a project related to security, you need to consider that there may be additional barriers for your solutions that you need to really carefully examine. And these are usually quite often related to mistrust of users. So basically anything that touches security by default, let's say, needs to have some level of trust between you and the customer or the end user. And that's why I think it's even more important to have some pre-existing, let's say, user base or partners with some users that that trust each other, because otherwise it may be even hard for you to test the solution with in some real world scenarios with some real users, just because of the trust issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcin. Javier, do you want to add anything else?
No, the answer of Martin is quite clear.
Okay.
I mean, I think that we are in the same page, that most of these tools are applicable for every project, but of course every market is different, every adoption path is different, so you have to be careful about the specific decisions that you are doing, but the tools in general are of course applicable to other kind of projects. Okay,
thank you very much. We have another question from Sabina Magalini to all panelists. The question is, in end-user driven projects, end-user coordinator, how to better involve the end user in the commercial exploitation of the project results. The end user project coordination does not participate to the IPR of the other partners, even though it is giving the information, the possibility of having pilots, the feedback, etc. She said that she thinks at the beginning of the project, one should make sure that the end user experience and work will have a recognition also as IPR or some other economic value, royalties, etc. How to make it a win-win situation?
I think that this question is made for me mainly because I was talking about these end user driven projects. Regarding that, the first answer is that it is not, let's say, a unique way to implement this. I can talk about the way in which we are doing in the Ghost project. As we commented, we have created this legal entity, or we are aiming to create this legal entity, this joint venture between the different partners of the consortium. And this one of the main, this reason that the question is addressing is one of the main points for creating this new legal entity. And it is reflected in the shareholding distribution that we are creating. I talked about the identification of the product IPR and the models of the different partners, but it is not the 100% of the shareholding that we are distributing only for this IPR that's creating from the partners. We are reserving, let's say more or less 30% for other different things, like can be this input from the end user knowledge that we have received from some of the partners, but also for the networking that some of the partners is bringing to the possible exploitation, for the manufacturing capabilities, for the logistics network that someone can bring to the new entity, the knowledge of the cybersecurity market itself. We are trying to leverage this, let's say, not IPR related the new things that someone is bringing to the project, like a part of the shareholding distribution that we have of the entity that we are aiming to create.
Okay, very good answer, Javier. Thank you very much. So now I think it's time to move on to the next presentation. So I hand over to Alberto Miranda from Atos, who is presenting how SME-Sec project is addressing the marketing readiness challenge. So Alberto, please.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all for attending this meeting, this webinar. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay.
Now, thank you very much.
Okay. I will go through what my colleagues Javier and Marcin have left me to say, because mostly as everything was already explained and mentioned, it is a bit tricky to position. But anyway, SME-Sec is a cybersecurity project focused on providing a lightware framework for SMEs. SMEs are one of the key drivers of the European Commission, as you all may know, because they are a big chunk of the market. They are one of the key providers of employment in the Commission, and also the revenues and the consumption of services. But what they represent now regarding the cybersecurity is a lack of awareness, a lack of budget, a lack of sometimes interest, because it is not one of their priorities. And that is why SMEsec appears and aims to support and protect those SMEs and those small businesses from cybersecurity threats. Okay, SMEsec tries to put together state-of-the-art services that our partners in the consortium have already working on them, and aggregate them in a unique framework for providing those services of cybersecurity to SMEs. SMEsec is a H2020 project, just for your information. We are now in year 3, so it is less than 3 months to go. We are finishing in June. We are 12 partners from 7 different countries in Europe. We also have one of our partners from Israel. And we have 4 pilots of 4 different domains within the cybersecurity and SMEs markets. Okay. So our main approach as Marcin and Javier mentioned during the proposal phase, was to identify the problem statement. Okay, but to add something extra to what they have mentioned already, what I would like to address is the time to market of those kind of projects. So 3 years in the cybersecurity market is, let's say, not very fancy amount of time for covering the specific cybersecurity needs of any user, and especially for SMEs. As you can see here, SMEs suffer 60% of the cyber attacks along 2016. They don't have a really systematic approach to cybersecurity, or even they don't receive training for cybersecurity awareness. And the consequences of those not actions from cybersecurity point of view of the SMEs become the disappearance of 60% of all affected SMEs after a cyber attack within the next 6 months. So it is a huge threat for the economy. It's a huge threat for the entrepreneurial activity of the European SMEs. The topic is very complex, but we can't focus in one fixed picture at the very beginning of the project. So our commitment to that activity is to monitor on a regular basis the market, to identify which are the new threats, even when we have already started a project, to have in the radar new threats or new needs of the SMEs during the lifetime of the project, and try to address it with the developments or with the services the project aims to provide to them. Okay. At that respect, market needs, even we have identified at the very beginning, it is very good option to keep an eye and to have in the radar the needs of the specific final users or final customers. In that specific case for SMEsec, the reduction of escalations, the reduction of the time response or the communication pitch, creating awareness to the SMEs, create a pitch attractive enough, just at least for them to attend or to ask some questions, but also, and not less important, the budget impact. So when we talk about cybersecurity to SMEs, usually they are afraid because they think about a huge amount of money. And this is specifically very critical for them because they need a cost-friendly approach. Okay, they are not in the position to invest a lot of money in percentage compared to their benefits and investment. With that, we generated an identification of potential competitors, even though this is a small representation of the ones we have monitored. But at least we can see what they can provide, what they are focusing in, and how we can tackle that, or if we are covering the same approach that they are doing. Okay. Alongside with that, and focusing on the customer-friendly approach that we are doing in the project, the creation of a pricing structure of the different components and to integrate it in the overall platform. It is one of the tricky things because it has to accommodate the cost of the partners and the licenses or the royalties they have for their components, or if it is a open source component, even there should be a recognition, or as Javier mentioned, a shared distribution of the benefits in case we have a commercial approach to a final customer. And we have been working on that, and we have generated a first approach that matches, at least in somehow, the expectation of the end users. Okay. We also talk about the business model at the very beginning, as Martin and Javier mentioned, of the early stages of the project, and also during the proposal phase. But what I would try to address here is the generation of that business model to address the sustainability of the project once the project finishes, because we know sometimes the projects are done and there is no continuity on that. Is one of the continuous complaints of the European Commission. So, and that approach, what I try to address in SMEsec, it was an approach from the financial point of view, sustainability, and the acceptance. So it would be profitable enough to continue with it, and it would be accepted by the customers to continue with it once we finish the project. One key thing that also may address one of the questions of the person that mail in the chat regarding the distribution and the fitability of the results to the specific needs of the market. In SMEsec, we have done an open call. We have 4 pilots addressing 4 different domains, but we also, during the second year, we generated an open call for external SMEs just to test, implement, see the benefits, and let's say interact with the developments of the framework and the different functionalities. And we receive feedback from them from a wide range of questions we have provided in questionnaires. If it is suitable for your needs, it covers your expectations, it is easy to use, it is easy to maintain, it is affordable with your budget. So that feedback in year 2 give us the opportunity to see if we are running in the correct direction, and we have time enough still before the project ends to correct any deviation we may have from the expectation of the market. Okay. Going back to the exploitation, also Javier mentioned the creation of a company or startup or a new legal entity. It is the most desirable part, but sometimes it is tricky to many partners to create a new organization. So that's why we are focusing also in another exploitation part, that is the commercial exploitation agreement. And for that commercial exploitation agreement, the basis of that is the IPR management. So to decide among partners if they agree with the lead developer and the contributing parties a percentage of intellectual property rights. So we generate a very simple document for everybody to agree and to sign. And with that, we create an exploitation agreement that may reflect the benefit sharing, the roles, the responsibilities of any future commercial exploitation of the results. Okay. We have a template, we have work on that, we reflect all the expectation, and this gives us the flexibility not to involve in a, let's say, fixed structure as a new company or startup, or everybody to join, but we can create a exploitation agreement from a bilateral or from a multilateral way with several partners, or just a couple of them, or the ones that are interested. And what I will also be keen on presenting in today's webinar, it was that the presentation of the success stories within the results of the project are very important, even though they are, or we consider them not very relevant. The creation of a new startup or a joint venture is a major success. But also, if we have internal presentations, or if we committed our developments from an individual point of view of each of the consortium partners to our company portfolio, and our company includes that development in the commercial actions they are doing, is a success that should be reflected. If we receive a mention or a recognition, or if a committee board asks for what are you doing, guys, in that project, this should be reflected, because it is not only a matter of transferring things to market, but also the potential ability of us or our organizations to transfer that to the market. And I think this is something that should be also reflected for the commission to see in the final reports and in the conclusions of the projects. And I think it's everything. Yeah. Here you have the contacts and the website to check the details of the technical approach of the SMSA project. And now, if you have questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Alberto. Really great advices for H2020 projects. Very graphic, the slide about the business model and your point of view of sustainability. And I'm pretty sure that it will be very helpful for the projects attending to this webinar, but also for the companies which have internal projects in development. And I like it very much what you said about the importance of reflect all the success stories, not only the commercial results. It's a great advice. There is one more question for the first block of the webinar, but we are going to ask this question at the end, after the next presentation. So please, Esther Casado, the Spanish and National Contact Point, I hand over to you to present your slides.
Hello. Good morning. Okay, I'm the last, and I have to say that most of the concept I want to transmit to all of you have been said in different aspects during this webinar. That means that all of them are quite important and have to be considered when you have to take a result from an R&D project to the market. Sorry, I don't Do you hear me?
Yes, you can hear.
Yes.
We can hear
The
you.
problem is, okay, sorry, my presentation didn't go, and I have, I was blocked because it doesn't respond. Okay.
It's all right.
Yes. So most of these concepts are already, as I say, but I want to try to make a view and remark what I think is more important and when. Because when you are in a collaboration project, you try to develop technology. And in the slide, you can see the TRL scale that tries to see how far are you from the market. But the questions in any moment are different, because the innovators could be only developing technology, but also thinking about how can you generate a business on this. So when you have an application and you have a prototype, is the moment when you can start to think that if you can or not generate this business. Before, you have to think how to solve technical problems and to evolve on the develop of this result. One main aspect on this is the IPR. The first question will be to do yourself who want to exploit this result. Sorry, because if you are only developing R&D, or if you are a research center, you are not going to exploit this result. This is the case that the previous, Alberto has said, that sometimes it's more interesting to make an exploitation agreement with a third party than to try to exploit yourself, because you are not an expert on exploitation. In this case, you should give the right to use of your result to another, to have exploitation, to have to do the commercialization of your product. During this research, you also have to ensure that you are going to have a freedom to operate, because sometimes you think you are going to make a patent, but it's not possible because someone have to do this before. This study ensures that what you are developing can be exploited. You can sail without any problem this result. And of course, it's important to make a strategy, a global strategy to protect your innovation, because when you have a value you have a value in your innovation, all the competitors will try to copy you. So you have to be sure that you create a very good protection of your innovation. This aspect, when you are a research, sometimes it's not important, because you first think to make a peer review publication, and only, let's say, think that the good result of your research is to publish. But sometimes this can create a problem. So this point, the IPR for exploitation, is very important in all of the projects that want to go more than only an R&D result. When you think you have a good result with a good potential, you still have to model the business, because there is many possible ways to take your innovation to the market. One thing is to have a business opportunity, because you have to think what is the market size, and that your innovation will go to an environment with competitors. Are essential, because will condition your exploitation, your sales. But you also have to consider that even with this market, this business opportunity, you have to model in the business, you have to decide how to take this innovation to the market. For this, my first recommendation will be to have business skills in your team, because many times innovators know a lot of technical aspects, know very well the product, but don't know how to sell, how to take this other business aspect into account in a company. For that, for me, the first point is to have a complementary team and to ensure that you have a business skill and someone sales in your company. There are many aspects to consider and to modeling in a business, in any sector, in any technology. You have to decide price. The previous Alberto have show you how to do. You have to see how to get money from your product. You have to establish a strategy to read the market. When, how will you send directly? Will you use distributors? How are you going to take your innovation to the final customer, who is the person who paid for you? And of course, you have to build everything that we are talking in a value proposition. Your product has to present a difference from the others, from the competitors, because you have to ensure that your product is better than the others. And all of these things is what you put in a paper. These elements is what you write in a business plan. At the end, business plan is only a paper that have all of these aspects. All of these aspects in a paper, that means that is a view of the company, of the idea in a moment. So my recommendation is you cannot modify this business plan every week, but you have to do at least twice a year, and always when you have something that create a big difference. That means, for example, a customer, a new sales, something that makes you different from the previous situation. How to this, in this, all of these elements, I think there are some that sometimes are too difficult for innovator or for a small company. One is to be able to size the opportunity. There are different approaches, and you can find that there is a big market, but you have to think that your product is going to be used in a special situation for some customer. Because software can be used for from many users, but your customer will be a small type of them. This is your final objective, to know who is your final customer and how many millions of euros is this opportunity. Another difficult point for you normally is to create a good value proposition, because you have to ensure that you are able to sell your product, because you have the same elements, but it will depend who is your customer target to create this value proposition. For fast food, it's more important the speed than the quality. But if you go to a restaurant, you have to ensure that the quality is enough. So to create this value proposition is too important. I put you in this presentation one of the many, because there are many tools And this one could be the value proposition design that you can use to create this. I think it's an easy way to define how are you going to go to your customer, because your customer really, because you solve the problems of the customer. The next point will be that now you have a business plan. You have to decide how to reach the customer. You have to define how many revenue streams do you have, because sometimes you will only have a product, others have a recurrent sales, and other a license. At the end, it's important to know all of these elements of your pricing model. These elements have also been considered before by Albert. Another point is the view of the business model. The business model canvas, again, is a tool that takes all the elements in one paper. That is why it's so easy, and most of the companies use. And it's important in one moment to define what you want to do with this, because in one point you will have your processes, your internal results. In another point, you have the customer, you have your value proposition. In other, you know who are your customer and what the money comes and how you use your money, what are your costs. At the end, all of these elements have to be defined. This is a summary of your business. Again, this can be changed every time you have an essential point in your company. Finally, I think in the business plan, you have to be very careful with some element. In the business opportunity, you have to define who sells, what is the market size, and the competitors. When you speak about the business model, you have to know very clear who are the customer, what is your value proposition, and what are your operations. And finally, to ensure the sustainability of the business, because again, Alberto said very clear that you have to create a sustainable business. You have to be able not only to develop something and to make one sales, you have to be sustainable and profitable, because you have to ensure the future of your company. For this, you have to define what are your pricing, what are your financial projections, and how will you scale up the business. Again, to finish, the first question that I think is the most important is to know how far I'm from the market. And in this view, you see how technology and market goes close. And my final recommendation will be that as soon as you have a prototype, you are more or less in a TRL 6 or before, depending on the sector, you have to start showing your product to your customers, the stakeholders. It's essential that the testing of the product is correct, because my experience with the SM instruments is that testing without a market reference is very difficult to sales. But when you have someone, a user, there is a question there. When there is a user that wants to test your product, and this user from one side ensure that the product solves their problems, their pains, and from the other side is a market reference, the second customer will become easier. The first sales is much more difficult than the second. So as soon as you can, go to the customer, make customer discovery, and ensure that your product solves the pains of the customer. That's all that I want to transmit. I don't know if I have any question.
Thank you very much, Esther. Right now, there is no question for you, but we have a question from the previous blog, and it was related to indeed is for the other projects. It was related to the one question that Sabina said about the end user involvement, but this time it was Elena Calzado who asked, how do you propose to link potential customers in order to validate your results, taking into account that in this field related to cybersecurity, they are not able or do not want to share such a sensible information? I mean, people do not recognize easily if their systems are facing problems or risky situations. So apart from the open call, as MISEC is presenting, how do you face this problem of how to involve to the end user facing the risk of sharing information?
Okay. In my projects, I mean, in the accelerator or the SME instrument, the customers are so interested in the project that have no concerns about sharing information, letter of intent, and to make the validation of this solution are so important for them that are very interesting, and they don't normally have problems.
Yeah, to add some additional information on that, I think it depends on the type of company that is facing the project. For example, in our project in SMEsec, SMEs are really interested in the adoption of tools that can protect them. So if they are not aware, they are willing to receive training or to receive webinars or awareness sessions to identify which are the weakest links in their organization regarding the cybersecurity. I assume for large organizations as confidentiality agreements or any other kind of legal binding to protect their critical information would be needed. But again, I remark that should depend on the size or should depend on the taxonomy of the different end users.
Okay, thank you very much, Alberto. I think now it's quite clear. And we have another question from Pedro Diogo to Esther. The question is, in RIA projects, in research and innovation projects, action projects, how closely should we follow these guidelines, knowing the IPR is much lower?
Research and innovation actions, I will say that you have to think in use case, that is that you have a technology that could be applied to several customer or several problems in the market. But I'm thinking to finish in a TRL 5 maximum, okay, or before. So more than to think how you could use in the future or who can use this is difficult. I'm not expert in this kind of instrument.
Okay, thank you. Thank you anyway. It's okay. So because we are out of time, I only would like to ask to the yes.
If I can honestly add a little bit to the last question, since I had some experience with research and innovation action
Thank you very much,
projects.
Marcin. Of course, go ahead.
Yes, so basically what I would say, since TRL is lower in those kind of projects, and as such also the market readiness level will be lower, I would say the most important thing for you is define coherent roadmap and or timeline, because basically if your research and innovation action project takes, for example, 3 years, and you're finishing at, let's say, market readiness 6, then your future product to be would probably need an additional 2 to 3 years to reach the market. So I would say most important thing to you is to plan for those next 3 years. Okay, so when you're finished with your project, you know that it does not, let's say, dismantle and gets forgotten. You need to plan. Actually, it's even harder than REA project than it is probably in IA, because you need to do the additional work of planning in advance for playing the long game, as I called it in the presentation. Okay.
And just a comment in that side, I think that the main difference between an innovation action and research and innovation action is that in the innovation action you are trying to sell a product when you are finishing the project, and in the research and innovation action you are selling potential. So you need to be clear with that and to see to create results that are applicable to many different markets if possible, in order to define these roadmaps that Martin has commented.
Thank you very much, Marcin and Javier. I think the message was very clear through all these presentations, and basically is that the exploitation plan, it's a hard activity that needs a lot of work if you want to success. It's a long game. And if you work hard, do not desperate about the results, be optimistic and consider all your success stories as part of the achievements of your business plans. To conclude, I would like to ask to the participant just to say a final statement, 1 minute, to summarize in a few words or highlight what they want. So please, Marcin, could you say final words, please?
Okay, so 1 minute to say some final words. I think that's most important for you to take away. One of the important takeaways from today's presentations is that there's a lot of planning to do for everybody that wants to finish with something really exploitable. And this planning does not begin with the project, but before the project. And also that planning does not get you anywhere unless you are able to execute that plan and bring it into life. Thank you.
From my side, the main message that I would like to remark is the importance of starting the preparation of the exploitation from the beginning of your projects, and to have always a mind in the final market that you are trying to address, and also that that is really relevant to test, as we have seen, and to include these methodologies with your end user involved during the execution of the projects.
Yeah, for me, the takeaway you can use from that webinar is to have a good transfer to market of the results of the project. All the presentations have give the attendees tips to follow, or they are the standards that at least should be addressed in a transfer to market plan. if you want to provide exceptional results to the EU and to the reviewers, sometimes you need to stop because, as someone mentioned, it is a very hard work to do the exploitation, and sometimes we don't have the extra time to do it by the end of the project. To have that extra mile and to provide that extra mile, sometimes you have to stop and to think out of the box, and to see from a different angle the approach you are doing. And at that point, you may have an extra to show to the EU.
Okay, I will say quite similar. The business plan, you can use several tools to define your business plan in all the different aspects. And when you finish this definition, you have to follow it. And the second point that I want to transmit is that the team, the business skills in a company that want to sell is essential from the beginning. And that's all.
Thank you very much to all of you. I think the message is clear. I think that these last sentences summarize very well what you have said during all the presentation and the tips and recommendations that you have give to all the attendants. Finally, I would like to remind that if you want to promote your project, you can join the Cyberwatching Project Hub for free, where you can promote your results, your deliverables, your events or news. And each week we promote in our landing page the project of the week. But also if you are a company providing solutions in cybersecurity and privacy, you can also join our marketplace to promote your solutions and establish networking relationships. And you will also find recommendations and guides documents for projects and companies. Thank you very much to all of you, especially to the speakers. You will find the presentations and the webinar recording in our webinar page in the coming days. And just once more, thank you very much and see you soon.